Welcome to episode 98 of the Ski Podcast, and thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be finding out what it's like to jump out of a helicopter hovering above the Eiger, and about a new event in Val Thorens that will be raising funds to help turn some young lives around. Firstly, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for supporting the Ski Podcast. I noticed that they recently broke a record in Switzerland. It was the longest women-only rope team in the world. There were 80 women from 25 countries who climbed the Breithorn, which is just above Zermatt, 4,164 metres on the 17th of June. Obviously, the reason they're doing that is part of the Women's Initiative to give women a greater prominence in mountain sports. And that actually fits in quite well with the feature that we did about gender representation in episode 97, when we had Rachel Oaksash from Snow's Best on. Really interesting to see that. I did actually get one bit of feedback on Twitter where someone said, why does everything have to be politicised? Can't skiing be a pleasurable pursuit without ramming gender politics? And the theory climate change is man-made down at everyone's throats. So I think probably we've heard enough there to ignore that one. Right, my name's Iain Martin. I'd like to introduce my guest today. I'd like to welcome a regular guest, Emily Sarsfield-Power. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Hello. How are you doing? Nice to be back.
Got to say, congratulations. I believe it is the anniversary of you becoming Sarsfield-Power.
Yeah, the hyphenation arrived a year ago.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that. Also joining us today, we have first-timers Dan Keeley from Snowcamp. Hi, Dan.
Yeah, great to be here, Iain. Yeah, long-term fan of the show. And yeah, it's felt like a long time coming, actually, hasn't it?
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you on the show at last. And also first-timer, Felix Milns. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Iain. Great. Very pleasure to be here and join you on the show.
Excellent. Well, let's start by asking my guests when or where you skied or snowboarded last. Emily, do you want to start us off?
Normally, I would kind of be saying probably last week or something, but actually this year, my season ended a little bit early in March because I managed to get silly injuries, which now I've retired, I seem to get more injuries than I ever did when I was actually a professional skier. So unfortunately, I didn't get those last kind of like drips of the snow in April. But
where were you in March?
I was over in Saint-Foy, the little hidden gem between, just down from Tignes and Val d'Isère. Yeah, and did my first little bit of heli skiing over in Italy as well. So it was a pretty good trip.
Okay, that's where you get a pickup in France, and then they take you over to the border, because that Saint-Foy is very close to like La Rosière, which borders over to La Tuile. So do you ski down on that side?
Yeah, so pick up in Italy, because obviously we can't pick up in France, and then exactly that. So we kind of went to La Rosière, skied over the back, and then got picked up.
Right. Okay. And I hate to ask you about injuries, but given that you've skied, World Cup and Olympics in ski across, that must be gutting to be getting injured now.
I know. I think I'm picking up these old ailments from my dad. I'm blaming it on him. So yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but yeah, fully recovered now. Thank goodness. I just missed the back end of the ski season.
Excellent. Okay, Dan, what about yourself? When were you last on snow?
Yeah, it's actually relating to what we're diving into today, but it was back in February with the Crown Montana Marathon, which ran in parallel with the City Ski Championships. And Emily was out there as well. And yeah, it was just a pretty intense couple of days out there. Obviously, I was all systems go on the event side of things, but yeah, it was just an amazing, just amazing valley, amazing resort, great energy. And it was actually, I think it was 5 days after the restrictions lifted. And so that sense of togetherness out there, for the events, for the two events running in parallel, but just that sense of everybody, having that green light to be back out in the mountains 5 days after the restrictions lifted was game changing. So yeah, really great energy. And yeah, wish I could have done a bit more this year, but Crown Montana out in February.
Okay. And even though you were working on the event, you still had enough time to enjoy the ski area. Yeah.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Excellent. Felix, what about yourself? Where were you? Was it when you were out in the Jungfrau area?
No, I was. I took the family out to Colorado, and we did sort of a double header. We went to Beaver Creek and then on to Vail, which I'd not been to for about 20 years. So it was quite nice to go and check out the back bowls again there.
Okay, and I mean, how did you find those two resorts? Vail's obviously one of the most famous ski resorts in the world.
So I mean, I absolutely love the skiing there. There's some fantastic mountains. And I think I'd sort of forgotten that a little bit from my last trip. I've done quite a lot of skiing in the States, and kind of my sort of all-time faves are places like Aspen and Jackson Hole. But actually, the skiing that they have there, the mountains they have there, and the way they use the mountains, the way they sort of glade the trees, and it was particularly great to take the kids over there for the first time, because what they do a lot there is they have a lot of these sort of adventure parks where kids can kind of ski through and ski under little wigwams and round through the glades. And actually, what they kind of explained to me there is, they design them to get kids used to skiing tighter lines, to skiing trees. So it's actually a really fun way to introduce them to sort of more off-piste and free ride terrain.
Excellent. That sounds great. And you mentioned Jackson Hole there, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. Firstly, regular listeners will recall that I interviewed Arnie Wilson a while ago. Now, Arnie Wilson, very respected journalist within the industry, he has skied in over, if I recall correctly, I'm trying to look it up now, 740 resorts. But his favourite resort out of all of those is Jackson Hole.
Yeah, he got married there as well, and I think it's such a magical resort. It is a place like no other. You have the sort of the town of Jackson, which is this kind of old, very much sort of mountain culture town, and then this beast of a mountain above it.
I haven't skied there, but as it goes, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be driving through Jackson on my way from Salt Lake City to Yellowstone. So I'm hoping, even though I'm not going to get the skiing side of things, to just sample a little bit of the atmosphere there and have a look, as it's been mentioned so many times before. Right, let's move on to a couple of items of news. Episode 97 was a Down Under special. We focus in real detail on Australia and New Zealand. Now, I have noticed that the cases of Omicron are rising in New Zealand, but everything is still open. Paul Anderson, the MD of nzski.com, had previously in 2021 had to deal with everything closing again, but it's still open. The snow is really good. And I'm delighted to say that we've got a snow report here from Jasmin Taylor, regular friend of the show. He's currently based out in Hotham in Australia. She's obviously Team GB telemarker, but she's working out there this summer, coaching, instructing, and doing a bit of free skiing as well. So let's have a listen to her report.
Hi Ian, just waking up to another sunny day in Hotham. It's been like this for I think 4 or 5 days now, which has just been amazing, and the snow is brilliant. We had about 30 centimetres at the start of the week, and bluebird ever since, so it's just been absolutely ideal and just perfect skiing conditions here in Australia. So I hope everybody's enjoying this summer and it's not too hot. It's certainly not that hot here, but looking forward to catching up again soon, and speak to you all again.
I wondered if any of our guests here today have ever skied in New Zealand or Australia.
No, it's definitely on the bucket list. But even listening about Jackson Hole, our youngest has just turned 3 years old, so we're already starting to design what his first experiences are going to be on skis. So Felix, you've definitely lit the candle with getting Max over to Jackson Hole. But New Zealand's on the bucket list, also for the trail running side of things, Ian, as well.
Right, of course,
we need to get over there at some point. But no.
Emily, I assume that at some point you must have raced in Australia or New Zealand?
You would have thought so, because that is the place where everyone kind of goes to train in that summer period. But unfortunately, my parents couldn't really afford to send me over there for the whole of the summer. So I just had to kind of stay in Europe and kind of make it work on the glaciers here in Teen and Sass Bay and stuff. So unfortunately, I never did get there. I did go to Chile and Argentina before kind of last Olympics for summer training, but never got to Australia and New Zealand yet.
Right. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the glaciers in Europe, because I think possibly Jasmin has made a great decision going down there. I don't think anyone is unaware that Europe, Britain has been going through a heat wave, significant heat wave at the moment. And currently, there are only 4 areas, actually 3 areas in the EU. I did read this morning a report somewhere else saying there are 4 areas in Europe that are open for skiing at the moment. They are Zermatt, Hintertux and Passo Stelvio. Sasfe is open, but not to the public, only for people to do race training. So I guess that would apply for athletes. But that is the lowest number of areas ever. I think I mentioned it was in the last episode. Team closed early, Les des Alpes closed early. And in Les des Alpes, they had 5 nights in a row where the temperature on the glacier remained above zero. So when you get that, normally on a glacier, you get that freeze thaw the whole time, but it never froze again overnight. And the snow deteriorated so badly, they decided that they didn't want to offer that kind of product for people to be able to ski on snow that was slush already first thing. So they just closed early. So I think we're probably all aware of that, and we can tackle those issues in another podcast. But Felix, I'd like to move on to you now. How can we not start with you? I saw this amazing article in the Telegraph last winter. And, you know, I'm going to, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but the headline is Freefalling at 130 miles per hour in the shadow of the Eiger was terrifying. And, you know, how could you not read that? That's like clickbait of the highest order. You know, I've tried like ski touring and heli skiing, zip wires around the place, but this really stood out. It sounds like something out of a James Bond movie. So, I mean, let's start with the obvious question. You know, why would you do this?
Well, I think the obvious question is, why wouldn't you do it, Ian? I mean, surely for any of us sort of adrenaline junkies, the opportunity to jump out of a helicopter above the Eiger, it was just too good an opportunity to miss. And I couldn't believe I hadn't done it before, and that was available. So as soon as I had heard about it, I was like, wow, I'd never done a skydive before. It's always something I wanted to do, and to do it there is probably the guy that my tandem pilot that I jump with. He's done over 15,000 jumps worldwide. A South African chap called Michael, and yeah, for him this was the most scenic spot possible to do a skydive. So it was a great way to sort of break that duck.
Excellent. So you found out about it. I mean, what are the logistics? How did the process work? Where were you staying in the Jungfrau area?
So we were staying in Grindelwald, and you actually you kind of go down into Interlaken. So you just get the train down to Interlaken, and that's where the sort of the HQ is for the helicopter base. So you could be staying in Grindelwald, Wengen, Murren. You could be staying in any of those areas really, or in Interlaken itself. And it's probably no coincidence that it's there, because I don't know how well you know that area, but it's a real kind of mecca for adventure sports. You know, they do a lot of base jumping from that area, and so I guess, you know, it's kind of natural that it's there.
Yeah, we have that very famous footage. I might try and dig it out. I think it was Shane McConkey who first skied off. Did he ski off the Eiger and then base jump from that?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll check my facts, find that video, and share it. But yeah, and so you start from Interlaken, and then you're up in a helicopter.
Yeah, and a lot of skydives take place from a plane, so it's fairly unusual to do it from a helicopter, and I think that makes it extra special here, really. So you start in the heli, and then it's a really beautiful ride up the valley, and you kind of go up through this gorge, and then you just suddenly kind of go up this cliff face and over onto the Mannlichen slopes, which are the beautiful slopes, just kind of working their way over to the Eiger and Kleine Scheideregg area, if you know that spot. So you kind of summit over these, and then you kind of skim quite low over the ski slopes. You get this wonderful view out of the it's all glass, the helicopter. So you get a wonderful view of the slopes below, and everyone having their ski day. And then as you kind of rise further up towards the Eiger, it's right there in your face, and you realize you're getting higher and higher, because the ice is forming on the outside of the helicopter windows, and just as you kind of get up to the Eiger, as we were coming up there, we could see the sort of wisps of snow and wind sort of circling around the top of the Eiger, and then as the heli gets there, you're buffeting around, and there the nerves are really starting to jangle.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. So what sort of altitude did you take off from?
Well, the Eiger's 4,300 roughly, and you basically jump in line with that. So you kind of do a quick circuit around the top of the Eiger, and then move a safe enough distance away, and then it's time to sort of say, yeah, would you like to sort of jump out and stand on the rail? And that was an amazing feeling to literally be standing on this kind of skinny rail of the helicopter and just looking down. It was an incredible feeling.
And how were the nerves at that point?
Well, I think by then my adrenaline had kicked in, and it was just kind of I couldn't stop talking. I was just kind of, oh my god, I can't believe I'm going to do this, and it was intense.
I think it'd be interesting. You don't wear one of those watches where it records your heart rate, do you? Did you get to see that at all?
Well, funnily enough, I didn't. I could probably go back and check. Check. So I do wear an Apple Watch, so maybe I can go back and have a look and see what my readings were for that time. But I was very lucky to be able to jump. What they do. The person, your tandem jumper has a camera mounted on his wrist, so he films you from there as well. And because I was doing the piece for the Telegraph, we had another jump as well, who had a camera mounted on his helmet. So that was great to be able to sort of get the two views. And there's a great video on Twitter about it, so you can sort of see the perspective from the arm view, and then also the guy just below.
Yeah, us. Well, I will put that in the show notes. So Michael says to you, right, 3, 2, 1, and then that's it. You're off.
Yeah, and so he sort of explains. You get a sort of a proper briefing on the ground before you go up, of course. And the important thing is you kind of just you actually arc your body backwards and put your sort of neck on. You put your head back onto his shoulder, and then you jump. For a radio show, you'll know the phrase dead air. So he uses the phrase dead air for when you start the free fall, because you're not getting that resistance for the first couple of seconds, and then so this sort of, it's quite a sort of eerie feeling to begin with, and then you suddenly feel it, and then just quite naturally. So you start with your arms crossed over your shoulders, and then quite naturally, as you kind of come out of that dead air thing, you just kind of open up into that sort of classic free fall position that you can all visualize, I'm sure. And then that's it. Then your cheeks are going, so you're just 130 miles an hour within about 3 seconds.
Yeah. Do you have enough time to kind of hum the Mission Impossible tune through your mind or anything like that?
You're still screaming at that point, I think.
Cool. And what about it? So how long does that free falling part take? So
you free fall for about 45 seconds. So you do that initial jump, and then as you come out the dead air, your pilot lets up a tiny little parachute, which they call a droog, and that actually just keeps your speed down to 130 miles an hour. Otherwise, you'd be going faster. And then you free fall for about 45 seconds, and you're kind of spinning slowly around, so the Eiger's kind of coming in and out of view, in and out of view, in and out of view, and then you're just looking down. There's Grindelwald, and there's the kind of ski area just behind the town I'd skied in the day before, so it was kind of and sort of spotting it. And then it does actually feel like a long time. You'd think it might go really quickly, but you kind of it's one of those that feels like an hour, but then afterwards it feels like it's gone by in a split second type of thing.
Yeah.
And then he'll sort of tap on your thing, and you wear goggles at this point as well because you're going so quick.
And where did you land then?
So after that point, he'll pull the ripcord, and then you go into what if you've ever done a paraglide. It's like a high-speed paraglide, because obviously they keep the parachute as small and light as possible. So then you just start kind of circling round, and it's quite nice because he'll give you control, and you can have a steer and spin round. And then we actually landed on the Langlauf track in Grindelwald.
Excellent.
And you know, he's sort of very important to keep your feet up. So you basically just go in, you know, butt first and slide along the Langlauf track at high speed.
And any surprised, you know, cross-country skiers, you know, as you landed?
Yeah, there was certainly a couple. They've probably seen it all before, but yeah, there was a couple coming. Just unfortunately, we'd avoided them.
Right, and crucially, one other question: did you have a Union Jack parachute?
Well, I didn't have the choice of that. I'm afraid I had to use it. Didn't take my own.
So, I mean, it really sounds amazing. You know, would you do it again?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. So I'm actually interested. You're in Grindelwald this time last year, roughly. I was out in Grindelwald as well. I did a trail race over there. Did you enjoy your holiday there? Were you there with your family, or was it just yourself?
So my wife came out to join me for a couple of days. I'd gone out a little bit earlier just because I wanted to give myself a weather window for that. But I absolutely love the resort. Actually, I think it's one of the most scenic places to ski, kind of anywhere in Europe. Probably that and the Dolomites. I think skiing in the Jungfrau region, the Jungfrau, the Monk, and the Eiger, it's just so elemental there, isn't it? And just everywhere you look is just incredible, insane views.
I've been lucky enough to go there in summer and in winter, over in Murren, and skied over to Wengen and Grindelwald as well. And yeah, certainly it's on my list of places to go to again. Well, that's brilliant, Felix. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, and congratulations on having the courage to do it. And you know, if you do it again, come back and you can tell us about it again. Emily, I'd like to move to you now, if we could. The reason I wanted to have you on is that there's a new event that I read about coming up, which Dan referred to earlier, the HABL Three Valley Rally. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what it is, where it is, and what's going on.
So this is the ultimate one. So basically, the whole event is actually organised by Snowcamp, of which I've been an ambassador for many years, along with kind of pretty much the Ski Sunday lineup. So you've got kind of Shemi and Graham and Jenny and Ed, and we'll all be there. But basically, it's a 20th anniversary for the charity. So they've kind of pulled out all the stops with AJ Bell, and they've kind of gone for, because they've produced some pretty good events in the past. So the Cool Blanc, which is actually was intense. It was a lot of skiing. So you kind of hit every single ski lift in the whole of Maribel, and it takes a good, from the bottom of Brede-Laban, it can take you about 8 hours to do. So there's that. With the kind of the Trans-Montana Marathon and all of the big kind of events they've done in the past, they've kind of created the ultimate package, which is going to be the Three Valley Rally. So activities, pick the best hotel up there, the 5-star Fitzroy. They've got the Ollie Doosan involved. They've got Michelin star restaurants. So from party to activity to accommodation and to gastronomy, it's covered. So that's going to happen out in April.
Okay, so it's April in Val Thorens. You mentioned, 5-star hotels and gastronomy and things like that. It's not necessarily going to be an event for everyone. Do you know how much it costs at all then?
I'm going to leave the detail of that to Dan. However, basically the majority of the costs, they've done really well and got this sponsored event. So the majority of the costs will actually be going kind of like pretty much direct to the charity.
Through the actual event, the Three Valley Rally, there's several different competitive aspects to that are going on, aren't there? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. I would, I love a bit of competition. So we will be on the teams. So you will get kind of a celeb or a skier or a snowboard on your team as well. If you want us, and we'll be doing biathlon. We'll be doing a slalom. There's a distance challenge, an orienteering challenge, and there's also a zip wire challenge. So Felix, you might want to get involved in that one. So they've, as I said, they've kind of brought all of the kind of experience they've had in the past together, and they're going to be doing like the ultimate event.
There's actually a couple of zip wires in VT, but I love that zip wire, the new multi-stage one that goes down and finishes in the centre of town itself. It's actually brilliant, flying over the slopes. There's another zip wire higher up between the highest point in RL and VT, which has a very big drop beneath it. But cool, that sounds really good. And you mentioned Graham Bell, Chemi Alcott, Jenny Jones, and Ed Lee are all going to be there as well. So if you fancy mixing with some ski celebs, then that could be it. But Dan, then I'm going to move on to you. The whole point of this event is great. Yeah, let's have a lot of fun. But essentially, it is a fundraiser for Snowcamp, isn't it? I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about Snowcamp and what your role is there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, thanks to Em, she's been involved for so many years now as one of our most passionate, committed ambassadors. So yeah, it's going to be amazing, Em, obviously having you out there, to celebrate in style next year. But yeah, 20 years now, 20 years of turning young lives around with the power of snow sports. So yeah, it's been some journey. 20 years ago, Dan Charlish took 13 young people out to Lead Us Out. These are, hard to reach inner city young people who would otherwise never have the opportunity to access skiing and snowboarding in the UK, let alone going out to the mountains. So obviously that first experience for them was game changing. But obviously 20 years ago, we knew if we were to establish a UK charity, then at least 90% of our work had to be UK based. So as Emily alluded to, we take young people away from the inner city environment, typically to indoor slopes across the UK, take them on a 3-stage journey over the course of 12 months, which culminates with this life-changing week in the mountains. So this is all about, developing life skills, broadening horizons, raising aspirations, setting these young people up to go on to positive opportunities, whether that's in the snow sports industry or higher education or employment. But obviously, if we can bridge the gap, between what we do and those very hard to reach young people and the opportunities that exist in the snow sports industry as well, then obviously, we can be pretty proud of that as a team. It's been quite a fast-paced couple of years. It's 20 years now of harnessing the power of snow sports to change lives. But as Emily will know, with the sort of engagement that we've done with the young people over the past couple of years through the pandemic, we also developed a standalone mental health service to support young people with that holistic package, which completely flourished. So this is free online face-to-face counselling for all the young people we were supporting, and it became so successful that we had to offset it as its own standalone program alongside Snowcamp, which is why now we are re-registered as Switch 180 as a national youth charity. Same mission, same passion, same team, but we just wanted to make sure that the mental health service in its own right could stand alone. So it just gives us the crystal clear clarity between the snow sports side and the mental health side as well. But yeah, bring on our 20th year.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting. I mean, obviously, you followed Snowcamp since the beginning. It happened to be based in Brighton, where I am as well. And I know Dan, who founded it, and he's done an incredible job over the years. And I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that it started off by taking people out to the Alps who would never normally get the opportunity. But it's become much, much broader than that in terms of involvement. It's more about that Switch 180. There's a clue in the name. It's about turning people's lives around and giving them the opportunity just to see that there can be other directions, and maybe taking them away from a certain direction they might have been heading in.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, I think what's always been the case with Snowcamp, which has been interesting, is what people perceive us as, because some people might perceive us as the next instructor training academy for inner city kids. It's not quite the case. Others might see us as the diversity and inclusion charity within snow sports, just by the nature of the young people that we support across the UK. But we've never put that out there as our North Star, but there are, some wonderful sort of consequences of the work that we do. But as we say, these are many, it's almost 1,000 young people that we work with year on year, but they do get, they fall through the gaps. These young people that have dropped out of education, maybe they're caught up in gang crime or knife culture, or, just that inner city urban jungle where they're not exposed to, this wonderful lifestyle in this industry and this environment that we all know and love. So obviously if we can, bridge the gap, and, I think broadening horizons, for me, that's the biggest compliment that we can pay to the young people, is to open their eyes, to conversations like this, and what Emily's done with with her career, and Felix's story, and what you do, Iain. There are so many accessible opportunities for these young people, but I always go back to that phrase: people like us do things like this. And if we can show more demographics that actually this lifestyle is available to you, and we've got, obviously, after 19 years of doing what we do, we've got so many amazing role models who have gone through the Snowcamp journey and now coming back as truly inspirational young people to inspire the next generation.
That is brilliant, Dan. What I will do is I'll put links to the AJ Bell 3 Valley Rally into the show notes and for Snowcamp as well. And just to reiterate something that Emily said there, AJ Bell is a sponsor of the event, and what that means is that if you decide that you want to join in and get a team there, the largest amount of your participation fee will go towards Snowcamp and Switch 180. So thanks very much for that, Dan. That's great. Right, we're going to move towards the close of the show now. I enjoy all feedback. Please do get in contact. You can review us, comment wherever you feel like it, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, social media. You can email me, theskipodcast@gmail.com. A comment that came in recently was from Bob in CH, who said, I enjoyed episode 96, Neil English's stories about Villar. Slightly depressing to hear about the Mer de Glace situation, but a reminder to go back and enjoy it while we can. And you can follow me at Skipedia and the podcast at the Ski Podcast. But for now, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the show and thank my guest today, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Iain. It's been a pleasure.
And Felix.
Thanks, Iain. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Excellent. And finally, listener, thank you for joining us. And until next time, goodbye. And finally, a special message from the Hotham Under-14 Alpine Girls racing team, currently being coached by Jasmin Taylor.
G'day, Ski Podcast listeners.